Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Now for the place the Bucks, Brewers, Badgers, and Packers all go find out what they're doing wrong. And the guy to point it out, here's your host, Dave Carney.
Yeah, baby. I'm Dave Carney, and I am considered a cunning linguist, also the region's top asshole, thanks to Chad Forster, who recently gave me that that particular moniker. Chad, it's sticking like flies on shit. Appreciate that one, buddy.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. The Milwaukee Bucks, they're not going to draw much criticism from me today. They defeated the Kings last night, 126-113, baby. Those Kings tickets versus the Bucks, those were won last week over at the Recovery Room. That's right. Thanks to Absolute Vodka, Jameson Irish Whiskey, our good friends over there at La Crosse Beverage were able to hook us up with those. And Mike Garcia's company at Midwest Mortgage Team's Land Home Financial Unit gave those away, I believe, as an internal employee. Like they gave them away, I think, internally as like an employee incentive, because Mike Garcia's name, Chad, is the one that got drawn out of, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of these little entry slips inside this huge cooler. So hope whoever went last night had a really great time. No criticism for the Bucks. The Brewers, I'm going to tell you what they're doing wrong. Not signing anybody in the offseason, trading the entire fucking team over the last like 12 months and being left with what? Christian Yelich and his bad back. This is going to get ugly fast. The Green Bay Packers, they can't be in my crosshairs. They're on a bye this week, so they can't lose, which is pretty exciting. And the Wisconsin Badgers, hey, they made a pretty good hire, didn't they? They got this guy, Longo, I believe, that is going to be their new offensive coordinator. And that guy comes with a pretty good resume. I don't know much about him. I'll be honest about that. But I saw some things. Looks like it was pretty good. So overall, not bad, Chad. Thanks a lot.
Joey Miller checking in. He says, morning, guys. Devontae Adams, 90-plus receiving yards or TD?
Yes, both.
I would say both on that. I would say
Both.
that is probably a good call. Thomas is checking in. Says that he saw Coach Janice yesterday at the Rec Eagle Center, which sounds like fun. Both excited to see Coach Dernbach tomorrow. Yeah, Coach Dernbach is joining us tomorrow at 8:30, correct?
Yes, sir. He is 8:30. Coach Kent Dernbach of the University of Wisconsin Lacrosse's Eagles team, number 3 in the nation, Chad. This Eagles team is just flying high. And, you know, we've got a real connection here on the program, too. The Eagles basketball team, Kyle Cable's dad, Ken Cable, who still works at the university in admissions, I believe, was the longtime head basketball coach of the Eagles men's team. I don't know if you knew that, Chad, but you do.
I did not know that, and now I do.
Thank you, G.I. Joe. Knowing's half the battle. Oh, speaking of G.I. Joe,
you know.
P12 Foreman saying, morning, sirs. In the world of no one gives a shit, Russia released Brittany Griner. Now the WNBA will be watchable. Chad, we are a sports program that is on the cutting edge of all things sports. We have our fingers on the pulses of WNBA basketball, of women's college volleyball, which, by the way, Kyle Wood, morning Wood, top of the wood to you, morning guy. He's trying to assemble a mass of people to go watch the Wisconsin women's volleyball team tonight over at the Recovery Room. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it because I've got a lot of things going on today, but I hear that this is something that is percolating right now. And Chad's now looking for something that, there we go. Boosh! Yeah, Foreman, we were all over this. What are you talking about? High-level Russian fucking arms dealer exchanged for a chick that plays basketball in a league that nobody cares about? Makes complete sense to me, Chad. I got to be honest. When I saw this, I was like, it's a good thing I don't know anything about geopolitics. Otherwise, I could be worried because I don't know that sending an arms dealer for a country that's currently engaging in an absolutely aggressive war on foreign soil is necessarily the best thing. But what do I know? I guess the WNBA does need its stars.
Well, I think this is referred to as a trade rape. This is not a good trade. If this was a sports trade, strictly a sports trade, this would be the equivalent of something you mentioned yesterday, which is the Herschel Walker trade.
Jesus, maybe.
They get everything. We get nothing. And nothing against Brittany Griner. I'm not saying that I don't like Brittany Griner or I think that she deserves to spend 15 years in prison.
For sure.
But this guy here is a bad guy that was an arms dealer that was, I think, apprehended in 2008, has been in prison. I mean, he's probably caused many deaths. He's not a good guy.
No.
This isn't equal.
No.
This isn't equal in any way, shape, or form.
This is one of those things that you wake up to this morning on ESPN. And I don't mean to poke fun at, again, this isn't a shot at the WNBA or Brittany Griner, but like Chad mentioned, this is a fucking lopsided trade. Like, I'm glad that I don't know anything about geopolitics. Like, I'm glad that I'm not some sort of, I don't know, civics major, because to me, this would fall real flat. I'm going to give it its space right now. Okay, we get Brittany Griner back. And listen, I'm with you. I don't think she deserved to spend however many years in a Russian penal colony.
Or whatever she had. What'd she have? Hash? Was it? It wasn't even, was it weed or was it hash? Or
it was like CBD oil. It was something. It was like a vape pen. It was nothing. It was nothing. It was some bullshit.
It was CBD oil.
It's like this. And I know we don't get into this kind of stuff too.
No, we can. Let's do it.
Fuck the Russians, okay? And all their bullshit right now. Like, this is just something where I'm like, okay, pump the brakes here. We know why they went and got Brittany Griner, because of things that are going on between our two countries. Like, they couldn't care less about this chick. It's not like a big moral impetus for Russia to stop this, right? Like, Vladimir Putin's got a lot of bigger fish to fry. As a matter of fact, he's killed more people in the last week than Brittany Griner's probably seen in the last 6 months. So, you know, it just feels like this is kind of one of those times in which America shows its penchant and almost its overarching, like, coddling of celebrity. Like, if you're a celebrity, we'll do whatever it is that it takes to make sure that you're cool, because you're a celebrity. Like, we've seen you on TV. So that means that you're important or something. I don't know. Listen, again, I don't know anything about this dude, but like Chad mentioned, the things that I've read, not great. Okay. And I understand Brittany Griner's a really good women's basketball player, but this is not a great trade.
Well,
this was a little flat.
And, you know, I mean, the other way you have to look at this, forget about what she does for a living. Forget about that she's a celebrity. Obviously, you know, imprisoned for what she did. And granted, she was in Russia and was stupid to have that on herself. And those are that punishment was way too severe. And she is an American. So from that point of view, I'm all for trying to get her back. But when you give away a guy that we have captured that has caused many deaths as a war criminal,
yes,
that's where I have a problem. And this is a showing of weakness by this country, because again, we just got trade raped on the international stage here.
Absolutely,
this doesn't look good for us in any way, shape, or form. Again,
no.
I'm grateful. I'm glad for Brittany Griner and her wife or whatever, and the WNBA and all of those things. And I support that. I think that's great. You know, she definitely doesn't deserve to rot in a Russian prison, nor does any American. But this is just out of balance and makes us look like assholes.
Yeah. If I'm the United States of America, and I know one thing, I know this: McDonald's pulled out of Russia when they went and invaded Ukraine. I'm going to send a fucking McDonald's franchise over. I'm not going to free the guy that's selling arms. Okay. You want your French fries? You want your Happy Meals? You want to die slowly from eating
and
this
there's a benefit because it kills people.
Exactly.
So if you want to kill your enemy, send
McDonald's. Exactly. Here, take this. It's going to fucking kill you. So here, have at it. All right, we'll be back in about 60 seconds here on the Sports Carnival. All fired up. We got a lot of bets to cover today. Oh, we're good. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just a regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hey, it's time for koozies, hot tub, and jacuzzis in downtown La Crosse. Whether you're looking to relax after a hard day's work, or maybe you're up for a little soak and poke, we got you covered. That's right, when you're in the market for a hot tub or jacuzzi, all you have to do is call the Coos. 555-SOAK. That's 555-7625.
Soak and poke is a slang term for hot tub sex.
Please practice responsibly.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios, this is the Sports Carnival, acknowledging that life is hard. So smile like you farted and keep moving forward. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
So it's interesting that Todd Vercruzzi's Hot Tubs and Jacuzzis has taken off so much, because there's a local company that's a telecommunications firm that apparently is getting hit up on this number all the time. They had it sitting out there. It was like dormant. the weirdest voicemails and the weirdest video messages of all time are coming in to this local telecom company. We've started a trend. We can't pull back on it now. We can't do that. So again, Todd Vercruzzi's hot tubs and jacuzzis. Remember, all the coups when you're looking for a good soak. Great guy to talk to about that. Let me say what's up to our friends over at the Midwest Mortgage Team, Land Home Financial, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Big supporters of the program, guys and gals that work over there with you. Thank you so very much. You know, I'm going through a recent transition here. The house that I've been living in for 6 years is getting sold. All right. Well, we're hoping that it's going to get sold, but we think it's going to go fast. And Kyle's my realtor, and he's helping me sell that. But now I'm going to be looking for something else in the next year or two, right? I'm going to need a mortgage for that. Go to a couple of guys that can process and service your mortgages right here locally, the Midwest Mortgage Team. And again, Todd Vercruzzi right now is the #1 mortgage agent in the entire company. Mike Garcia is right up there with them. They're over there right downtown on 4th Street across from the Fest grounds. So you know where they're at. You can see their buildings. They kind of call them the marshmallow buildings. They're big and green and kind of puffy right across from the Fest grounds. Great guys, and we'll help you out with your mortgage needs. Tony and Brian over at Preferred Insurance in downtown La Crosse. If you're a business owner like we are, Chad, if you've got flood insurance needs, homeowners insurance, or auto insurance, which I'm going to be giving Tony my auto insurance when I do a reacquisition of a vehicle. Preferred Insurance is the official insurance provider of the Sports Carnival. The Recovery Room, of course, Chad, powers us from coast to coast in our Trauma Center studios. And as I've mentioned, our friend Kyle Cable at One Trust Real Estate, my real estate agent. And if you're in the market for a new house, or perhaps you just need to figure out what your house is worth for the spring or summertime, call Kyle, get yourself a free home evaluation right now. Jim, the Namath is checking, and he's like, War Dogs, Lord of War. He must have been thinking about that Brittany Griner slide we had up.
I believe he was. And, you know,
Good
he's
call,
referencing a movie that I've looked at, but I've actually never watched. And I think that's with diabetes. What's his name? Jonah Hill's in that?
Yeah, Jonah Hill. Yes. That's a great movie, dude. It's a great movie.
Never watched it, but I've heard good things about that. And that guy's name, by the way, the bad guy that we ended up releasing, his name is Victor Bout. Again,
Jesus.
I think in 2008
Sounds like an old arch criminal.
Was convicted for arms dealing and quite significant arms dealing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you look at this trade from a sports point of view, it is probably equivalent, maybe not in number, but in impact of the Herschel Walker trade. It's lopsided, and it is a bit of a trade rape.
I've got something here, and this is just so poignant right now. Herschel Walker just lost his Senate runoff. Can't we trade him for Brittany Griner as opposed to this dude? Can't we send this fucker back to jail and just send them Herschel Walker? Run, Herschel, run. Who knows? Maybe he can run for a Senate position in Georgia, and it's not the state this time, but the country of Georgia that's kind of over there by Russia. You see what I mean? We're making a corollary.
Oh, Georgia.
We can.
I got you. He played at Georgia. Yes.
Okay. You feel me knocking?
Yeah.
Let me in then. And to be fair, I don't know that Herschel Walker would know the difference between, Georgia in the United States and Georgia in Europe. I'm not sure that he knows where the fuck he is at any one particular time.
I have a feeling he would know the difference. I've never been to either Georgia, but I think there's probably a significant difference in climate and atmosphere and all kinds of different things.
Well, I don't know that Herschel Walker doesn't know the meaning of pronouns, so I'm not sure he understands the meaning of climate. So
the only difference and the only reason that trade wouldn't work is he's not a criminal or not at least a convicted criminal. So I was trying to think of, let's think of like a what would be the equivalent? Like, well, we don't know a lot of Russian bad guys, so I don't know other Russian bad. Like, how about Yakov Smirnov? How about we send Yakov Smirnov back?
There you go.
He's hanging out. I think he hangs out at Branson, Missouri, doing a weekly show or a weekend show. Say, here, you can have Yakov Smirnov, and then we'll take back Brittany Griner. That makes more sense to me as far as a trade goes.
That's fair. I think that's fair. They also could have just done something like really simple and unfrozen one of their oligarchs' boats or something. Like that probably would have gotten it done too. I mean, to have to send this guy overseas. And again, look, I'm not any politico, so don't look at me like, oh, I've got some inside information. I read the quips that were on news sites, and I'm like, oh, so we're sending an arch criminal in a time in which this country is engaging in foreign war away for a basketball player, a woman's basketball player. And again, this isn't about Brittany Griner or the WNBA, because an American should not have to do that kind of time in a Russian penal colony for having vape pens. I mean, that's fucking ridiculous.
It wasn't vape pens, so that was that. I knew it had something to do with.
Yeah, that's what Foreman said. He put this up here earlier and said vape pens. Yes.
Anyway, whatever it was, fairly innocuous in the United States.
Yes.
At least now. Maybe in the 80s, she would have went to prison. But now, basically, in most states, it's legal, or in the states that it's not quote-unquote legal, they're going to make you throw it away, and you're going to get a fine. You're not going to prison for 15 years or whatever she got convicted of. Or 9 years or whatever it was.
9 years in a Russian penal colony.
9 years.
Jim, the Namath, is checking and said the arms dealer in the grinder trade is known as the merchant of death. Is that real, Jim, or are you just pulling it out your ass?
No, I saw that. I mean, this is on Wikipedia is where I got the information.
Well, okay,
so
fair enough.
Take it for what it's worth. But yeah, he had 2 nicknames, and that's one of the ones that did pop up was Merchant of Death, which again should pretty much paint the picture of what we're dealing with here, and the fact that we lost this trade dramatically. I think Neil Duda's idea here, if we're talking about maybe trades and draft picks, Tony Mandrich.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's send Tony Mandrich back.
Wow. See, that's here's the thing that I will say is unfair about getting drafted. It's like in any time you get drafted or conscripted into service, it's not your choice. Okay. Tony Mandrich didn't say, hey, take number 2 overall or whatever. That just happened to be the way that it fell. It's like Kwame Brown didn't ask
Anthony
Michael
Bennett.
Jordan. Exactly. Which, by the way, and I
still feel bad for that guy. I had somewhat of a relationship with him. I covered him when he was at UNLV. I had talked to him, and he was a shy, kind of an introverted guy, nice kid. But you could tell he wasn't really a big fan of the limelight, and he was still immature. And to be thrown into that and then have to live up to those expectations, I felt for him right away. I was like, I mean, it's cool. On one hand, you're like, wow, I went number 1. I'm going to get a big contract. This is great. But on the other hand is, now I'm going to get exposed.
Well, there were a couple of things working. And I remember when you were covering Anthony Bennett, because I was working for the Locos at the time when he was there. And we went to a couple of their, I think we went to one of their practices. Stacey Augmon was dressing those fuckers down up and down the court. Anthony Bennett had asthma. Chad, he couldn't run. I mean,
he had asthma too. Yeah.
He had asthma. And I'm not saying that you can't overcome asthma, but when you're talking about a professional athlete, an NBA player, to carry that kind of weight, that height, that load, it seemed a little odd. He was never in good shape.
Well,
and then the other thing, he got drafted by Cleveland, like the worst place you could have gotten drafted, number 1, in any probable way, shape, or form at that time anyways.
And he had Canadian asthma on top of it. It wasn't just normal asthma.
No,
so
exactly.
He's from Canada, so, which makes it even worse.
Fucking A. Fucking A. All right, so... Chad, normally on Thursdays, we would have John Denton, our sports betting insider, on with us. John is traveling this week, so he's not going to be with us. And actually, John and I discussed him giving me some plays, some picks to be able to discuss this weekend. But he's been bad lately. Like, John's not been hitting shit. If you've been watching this program over the last few weeks.
Wow, let's just run him over. Jeez.
Well, he has. He told me this. And he's like, dude, you should be f***ing me right now. And I didn't want to say, we'll definitely be doing that. But John's been not good. So we just said, hold the picks off for this week. You've had some really good picks of recent weeks. I've been okay. Last night, I had a 2-team NBA teaser. It was a 4-point teaser. I did get the Minnesota Timberwolves and the, who did they play last night again? Anyways, I was forgetting it was the Timberwolves and somebody. Shit. But I did get that game. And I got that one to cover, but I did not get the Lakers and the Raptors to go under 232.5 points, which I couldn't believe it didn't go under. It was like 101-84 in the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, the scoring just got out of hand. However, for the most part, we've been doing pretty good here on the program. We've been clipping at a decent rate, at least.
Pacers. They played the Pacers.
The Pacers. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So the Pacers covered the spread, which I sprinkled a little 4 points onto. But the Lakers and the Raptors went over the total, which I was really shocked about. The point that I'm making, while John has been bad, we've been good. And so because of that, next Thursday, as a matter of fact, 1 week from today, I'm going to be joining John Papadopoulos' show here, Chad, on ESPN 105.5 in the Cooley region as the new sports betting insider on ESPN for the Cooley region. And I do have a play for ESPN. As a matter of fact, if you listen today between noon and 6 p.m., you'll hear a couple of different spots of ours rotating through. One of them has got one play, which I'll bring up here in just a little bit. But for purposes of betting, Chad, you and I have been pretty good. So go to betus.com.pa, sign up, use the promo code Carnival when you hit join. And then, guys, when you make your first deposit, you'll be prompted for another promo code there. It just pops right up when you go to make a deposit. Put the promo code Carnival in there as well, and you'll get that 125% deposit match into the sports book. If you just signed up regular and didn't put that promo code in, Chad, it wouldn't give you the full 125% sign up to the sports book. It would give you 100% there and 25% in their casino. But for our guys and gals, we want them to use all of that money in the sports book. So again, use the promo code Carnival when you put your money in there.
Okay, quick math, just so that
Okay.
we're all on the same page. $100 gets you $225 worth of play, correct?
Yes.
That's pretty nice. So we're not
That's
talking about, because
fantastic.
sometimes when you read that or you hear that, you think that it's 125. No, it's 125%.
Yes.
That's huge.
It's massive.
Up to $2,500.
Up to $2,500. So essentially, like P12 Foreman had done the math for us. You put in $2,500 of your cash, you're going to have over $5,000 in actual playable money. Now, the other thing about this is, guys, too, and something to consider when you're thinking about which betting site to use. And please feel free to use the ones that you're using, but use ours as well, because it does help the show. When you want to get paid out, you need to have a reputable company that's going to pay you out. And when you've got free play money, a lot of these different offshore sites, or even some that are here in the States, won't let you cash out free play money. They'll let you continue to play it, but it's almost like an internal credit where it doesn't mean anything. If you use free play and you win a bet, it goes into your cash register. You go ahead and take that out when you want to. So again, betus.com.pa. Use the promo code Carnival. If you've got any questions, feel free to hit me up on our Facebook group page, Twitter, LinkedIn, any of the different platforms. Chad, now even on Snapchat at The Sports Carney. We are at The Sports Carney all across the board.
Well, I brought up your bets here. I hope it's not too early. Are you okay with bringing it up now?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the one that you were on yesterday, I believe, if I recall correctly, was the Jets game, and
Yes.
I believe you were calling the under on that, or was it the over?
Yes. So the underplay is red hot in this one. The underplay is the one that stands out the most specifically right now because of all the different metrics that I broke down. I've got those up if we need them. But what I wanted to bring up here too is the point spread that continues to grow. I think that right now the Bills are getting way overvalued. They just found out they lost Von Miller for the entire season. They thought he was going to be able to come back. He tore his ACL apparently, so he's gone. Don't forget that the Jets beat the Bills earlier this year. The Jets have been a better team than even in some cases their record would indicate. I like the Jets in this spot to cover the 10-point spread. I do think the under is still the play to make here. I really do. But I like the Jets to cover this spot. And the reason that I wanted to use these three games, which we'll talk about, is because I want to tease this three-teamer here and see if we can't get even better value out of it. But the first game that really jumps off is that Jets game plus 10.
I looked at that game too, did some research, and I disagree a smidge. I like the Jets in the points. When I was looking at it, it was 9.5. So in some places you can get it at 10. It's obviously moving in that direction. I like the over. And I think the total is 43.5. But New York is 7-5 against the spread and 4-2 on the road against the spread. The Bills are 6-5-1 against the spread and 2-2 at home against the spread. So I like the way that lays out. I also think weather could be a factor. So that kind of makes me vacillate or waffle a little bit on the over-under, and I haven't checked the weather. But right now, when I'm looking at some of the trends, I like the over. I may be wrong on that, but I agree with you that I like the Jets and the points for sure. That bet I like for sure.
Here's some of the reasons that, because I have them up now, here's some of the reasons why I went under on this one. And again, I'm looking at it, a number of different analytical and sort of anecdotal traits here that these two teams have combined for. In the last 7 meetings between these two teams, the underplay is 5-2. For the Bills, they're 5-0 going under in their last 5 games after allowing less than 90 rushing yards. They're 4-0 going under in their last 4 games following and against the spread win. They're 7-0 in their last 7 games following a straight up win going under. They're 6-1 going under in the last 7 games versus an AFC team. And they're 5-1 going under versus a team with the winning record in their last 6 games. Now for the Jets, the underplay is also 4-0 in their last 4 games versus a conference opponent. So while those things don't necessarily equate to anything, those were some of the indicators that I was using on the underplay, which you'll hear on ESPN 105.5 today. But back to what we started off with here, the point spread, now that it's swelled to 10, is really jumping out at me. Like this looks like one that you almost want to take right now before more money comes in on New York and starts to send this back down.
Well, watching that Jets Minnesota game last week, with the Minnesota's bend but not break defense, the Jets moved the football. They moved the football. They just could not punch it in the end zone. They kicked a lot of field goals. I'm seeing that. So that kind of lends towards your under as well, because they'll probably be similar. And then obviously, Josh Allen's going to chuck a few touchdowns and be scrambling and all those kinds of things. So I could see a 28 to 21. No, that would be over, I guess.
That would take it over, but I could see that too.
24-13 kind of game, possibly.
This is one of those things with gambling, Chad, that as smart as we can always be, and we can look at all these numbers and have, notepads upon notepads upon notepads of notes. It doesn't mean shit, because these guys go out there and they play the game and we're like, oh, all right. So that happened. Let's jump down to Kansas City, though, because I see that Joey Miller's checking in here and he's like, oh, Dave, the Broncos are covering. Joey smokes. It's something really interesting, because Joey's like a Denver fan for some reason. I can't remember why, but he hasn't apparently watched this Denver Bronco team this year.
Garbage.
Denver Broncos are possibly the worst team in the NFL. As a matter of fact, right now, by virtue of record, Chad, the Denver Broncos would get the number 3 pick in the draft, except they wouldn't get the number 3 pick in the draft. The Seattle Seahawks would get the number 3 pick in the draft because they traded Russell Wilson to Denver. Seattle is going to come out of this looking fucking fantastic. But Joey, there is absolutely zero indication on any single front that they're actually being kind to Denver with only a 10-point spread. If this thing was 16 or 17, I don't know if I would even scoff at it. At 10 points, I think you have to take a look at it, but I'm not going to take this at 10. We'll end up getting to a tease play here, but I disagree with Joey 100% here, Chad. I cannot see under any way, shape, or form, under any auspices, the Denver Broncos covering a 10-point spread. They scored 9 points last week versus a team in Baltimore who lost Lamar Jackson in like the first or second quarter, was playing with their backup, and boy, that was ugly bad. And the Ravens came back to win. Denver scored 9 points. 9.
Well, as I mentioned before, in this part of the country, it was a big buzz around here, and everybody was upset when Russell Wilson got traded, and they didn't think Geno Smith was going to be able to do anything. And they talked about, God, we need to get Baker Mayfield and all of these things. And Pete Carroll apparently is smarter than the rest of us, because he didn't need Russell Wilson. In fact, he got rid of a problem, it looks like, and now that's Denver's problem. And not to mention, as you mentioned, Seattle gets that pick. So Seattle comes out of this smelling like roses. They're doing really, really well. Geno Smith was in the conversation for possible MVP, which I think that's probably faded by now, but still having a great year. Russell Wilson is garbage. And not only are the Broncos playing bad, and Russell Wilson specifically is playing bad, I think Russell Wilson has lost the locker room as well, which doesn't bode well for future games. And I agree with you. I don't think they can cover shit.
No, they're going to be run out of the building in such a horribly embarrassing fashion. First of all, the Kansas City Chiefs-Denver Broncos rivalry, as bad as Denver is right now, it doesn't mean that Kansas City is going to take it easy on them. That's not the way that this works. That's like
when they're coming off a loss.
No,
too.
Thank you. And a loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. But wrapping up just briefly here with Kansas City and Denver, you mentioned Russell Wilson. There's something about relationships, Chad, that I think is really... It's easy to see how Russell Wilson's lost this locker room. When you see a couple and they're out in the street, they're at the grocery store, they're at a restaurant, and they're yelling at each other and bickering at each other, that is an indication that what goes on behind those closed doors is 1,000 times worse. Because when you are allowing yourself to, in public, show that kind of discord, that kind of unrest, that uneasiness, the outright animosity, Russell Wilson got yelled at on the sidelines a couple of weeks ago by a defensive player.
Yeah.
You could read his lips. He said, show some heart or get a heartbeat or something. I'm serious. It was one of those things. He was like, show up. It was something about a pulse, show a pulse. Russell Wilson right now, I said this yesterday, his ego is way bigger than his IQ. He has overshot this entire thing. And the idea that the Denver Broncos, Joey, at this point in the season, week 14, are going to somehow figure it out and cover versus Kansas City, I can't buy that. Not unless Patrick Mahomes decides he doesn't want to play. And Travis Kelce says no. Andy Reid gets his son out of prison for a few minutes and says, hey, come and coach this team up here. Don't take Adderall and drive, but come and get this team coached up here.
And we make Joey, hey, here's the thing. Because we own up to things that we say on the show. Come Monday, we might be eating crow, but I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it.
I'll eat the whole Denver fucking Bronco. Okay? I'll eat the whole Denver fucking Bronco. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more sports betting. We also have to talk about that Milwaukee Bucks team again, Chad, who got a nice win, 126-113 over the Sacramento Kings. Those tickets we gave away last week at the Recovery Room. Hope somebody had a great time there last night. Thanks to Mike Garcia at the Midwest Mortgage Team. Stick around.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Remember, a procrastinator's work is never done. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
You know, I was just thinking about this while we were off because I'm seeing so many of the comments come through on our YouTube, our Twitch, and our Facebook pages about Brittany Griner and this really bad trade that we made with Russia. If Brittany would have been represented by the official attorney of the Sports Carnival, maybe she wouldn't have been in such a bad way. Maybe we wouldn't, Chad, as a nation, had to have given up so much. Thank you, Sean, for being a friend, and thanks for helping support the show. Also, Joe Sampson, Helping Hands Landscaping. You know, Joe was actually being helped out by another friend of the show yesterday, Jimmy Namath. Jimmy and Joe were completing a project because Joe said to Jimmy, dude, I need your help right now. And there's hardly anybody as talented as Jimmy Namath is. So the two of those guys combined on something awesome yesterday. And if you need snow removal, lawn care during the summer or spring months in La Crosse or on Alaska, or even dog poop removal, hit up our friend Joe Sampson over at Helping Hands Landscaping. And Chad, I've got a question to pose to you. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
All right. Do you think that Baker Mayfield will play tonight for the Rams versus the Raiders? Because I'm looking at the depth chart here for the Rams, and I know Stafford's out. He's gone for the season. John Wofford apparently is listed as questionable, or at least day-to-day, depending on which site you're looking at. And Baker Mayfield did just get claimed off waivers by the Rams the other day. What do you think? Is he going to play tonight?
Well, I tell you what a horrible situation to be in if you're Baker Mayfield. I mean, number one, I guess you're glad you got a gig other than the Heisman House, which how long that'll last, I don't know. But, you know, for a quarterback to be able to jump in and just, you know, because one of the things, obviously, most offenses and being able to read a defense and all of that, you either have it or you don't. You either have that skill or you don't. And Baker Mayfield obviously is a smart enough guy, and to be able to be in the NFL as a quarterback at any point, you've got to have some skills when that comes. But there is a communication issue, right? Because, and that's one thing that I see across, no matter where you work, communication is one of the number one issues that you have within a company. And knowing the language that like the sales guys use. For me, what we use in the office and what we use in the warehouse and what the sales guys use, we're all talking about the same thing, but we use different language. And when you're new, sometimes it's hard to acclimate that. So this is a long way of saying, I think it's going to be a difficult situation for Baker to just jump in there, know the offense, know how they call the plays, know what they call the plays, and to be able to be effective. I mean, I think he has a hard enough time when he's coached up and does understand that. So what a tough spot to be in. I guess my answer would be no. But who knows? I don't know. Obviously, they picked him up for a reason.
Listen, on Twitter right now, at the Sports Carney, it's 90-10 saying, yes, he's going to play tonight.
Wow.
Now, on our Facebook group page, quite the opposite, 77-23, saying that Baker won't play tonight. I listen, back to your point. Would it be difficult? Yes. Would it be almost dangerous? Yes. Because if you really don't know what you're doing and how it's going to be able to roll out, what your protections are going to be, you could put yourself in a position to kind of get hurt. But I almost think about it in this way, shape, or form. Sean McVay is a football coach. These guys are all pro football players. They didn't all play the most complicated offenses, right? These kids all played Pop Warner. They all played, junior high and high school football. There is a possibility that Sean McVay and the coaching staff, because of the fact that they are in triage mode right now, right? Like they're running out of they're running out of healthy bodies. They might be like you mentioned a couple of weeks ago when Aaron Rodgers was struggling with the Packers. Just fucking put your hand in the dirt or get a little stick and start drawing it up. All right, guys. Here's what we're gonna do. You run Cam Akers 50 times. Okay, you don't throw the ball 50 times. You run the ball 50 times. You maybe throw a couple of little bubble screens. I mean, Baker Mayfield doesn't have a strong arm. He was supposed to be an accurate short mid-range passer. I'd run a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage, see if your offensive line can get some push. Now, that's the other problem for the Rams. Their offensive line's taken a big hit over the last couple of years, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would be dangerous for him in some ways, but I almost wonder if there's out of necessity to be forced into action. Now, Sean McVay did say yesterday that he hopes that Baker Mayfield doesn't have to play tonight. That doesn't give me a ton of confidence that he will, but it doesn't give me a ton of confidence that he won't.
Well,
if in fact that needs to happen.
I will say this, if he does play, I'm going to be fairly kind to him when we do talk about it, because again, being thrown into this in that position specifically.
Yeah.
It's one thing like Hawkinson, right? That did it going from Detroit to Minnesota. And he did a really good job. And actually all those teammates on Minnesota commented about how quickly he picked that up. That's not normal. That's hard to do. But to be a quarterback and have to do it's even harder. I remember the Titans. We're running 3 plays, and we're just running them really veer right, veer left, and up the middle. That's what we're running. And maybe, like you said, maybe some bubble screens, dumb down the language a little bit, maybe even run some stuff or throw some stuff in there that he is already acclimated to because you already know what offenses he's been involved in. And maybe, change the playbook that to help him, or change the language a little bit to help him. Maybe you go to the Chip Kelly, signs with ducks and shit on it to help him. I don't know. But
hey, Lincoln Riley's coaching at SC right now. Okay. They don't have anything going on this week. Maybe he comes to the game. He sits on the sideline with Baker, right? The McVay staff lets him kind of come over.
Sits.
And maybe they ask Lincoln Riley, like, what this guy can do. I mean, say what you will. Lincoln Riley made this dude look pretty doggone good. I do think that there is a possibility that the Raiders, who are going to be playing in Los Angeles tonight with a much bigger fan base than the Rams. Okay, get ready for that. This is going to be a Raiders house tonight in Los Angeles. I do think there is a possibility that the Raiders make messy of this game and blow this team out by like 30 points, because the Raiders are 3-0 in their last 3. And their offense hasn't been the problem this year. It was slowing teams down, closing games.
Yeah.
But the Raiders could blow this team away. The other thing I see that's a possibility for this one tonight, which is why I didn't put the Raiders on my list of bets, which let's pull that back up here because I want to continue talking about that. But one of the reasons I didn't put the Raiders on my list of best bets for this week in the NFL is because in a game like this as well, Chad, all of the things that we talked about, the unknowns with the quarterback, the idea that McVay might go to something completely simple, throw up the Chip Kelly signs, this could mean the Raiders are completely out of sorts and don't have the right kind of defensive game plan. And then you could see this getting like really ugly, sort of like I don't know, just a real scrappy sort of choppy game. I could see it being kind of a choppy game. It's going to be, like I've mentioned, in LA. It'll be sort of inside. But with all the unknowns, sometimes that can lead you to sort of I don't know if it'll be a bad game, but a choppy game, a game that won't have a lot of consistency as much as you would see if you kind of had a traditional quarterback there and you kind of knew who you were facing.
So Jeremy Foreman saying Joe Montana's advice to Brock Purdy, be the mailman and just get the guys that can run.
Yeah.
And actually Brock Purdy's is set up in a much better situation. And again, I love the fact that the Rams, it stayed in the division. They're the ones that end up getting the problem, right? They're the ones that because the 49ers, they were talking about possibly picking up Baker Mayfield. At least that was rumored to happen. And I'm glad that didn't happen. But Brock Purdy, with all those weapons he has around him, he's in a much better situation. I mean, you can throw the ball off to Christian McCaffrey. You know, he can throw the ball. DB Samuel can run the ball. I mean, they've got all these different guys that can do all of these different skilled things. And really, your main thing is don't turn the ball over. That's going to be your main concern. I think Baker Mayfield's going to be in a totally different situation, and he's going to be lucky not to turn the ball over more than once.
First of all, okay, two things here, because Brock Purdy deserves a little bit of credit for just being in camp. Okay, that's another thing that you have to realize is Brock Purdy's been in camp with this team the entire season. Yes, he was the last pick in the draft, but he's been there. He's also more mobile than Jimmy Garoppolo is. He has some of the same limitations. He doesn't have a huge arm, but he's more mobile, and he's more mobile than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's not a great athlete at all. So I think that the 49ers made a completely right decision by not picking him up. The Rams just needed a healthy body, right? They needed live wires on the team. So when that guy becomes available, boom, you pick him up. For Baker Mayfield, though, this couldn't have been the ideal landing spot for one reason. You're not getting that job next year. I mean, like, unless Matt Stafford retires, which I still don't know if I completely agree with, but you're not getting that job next year. The best thing for Baker would have been to land with a team like Houston or something and have them give him a shot and see what he does over the next few weeks. And maybe they try you out next year because Houston's going to be picking, a lot of different holes up on their own next year.
The job that he'll end up with is a backup anyway. I don't think he's going to get a starting position unless it's with the shit team and they have no other choice.
Well, fair, and then this was the second point I was going to make up. So we had Purdy to start with being more mobile and in a better fit because he's been in camp. So they started the total QBR metric back in the season of 2006. I want to say it was 2006 is when they started that total QBR metric. Baker Mayfield is having the second worst total QBR since that statistic was actually created. Do you know who has the worst total QBR other than Baker Mayfield? Jimmy fucking Clausen of the very same Carolina Panthers.
Wow. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield has an 18.9 QBR, total QBR. Jimmy Clausen had a 12.4 for the lowest in the history of the NFL since that metric became a thing. Baker Mayfield he's regressed so far now. You're right. As a backup, he'll almost be lucky to sort of get that job, because then you think about him like Tim Tebow or Johnny Manziel. If they're not starting, are they really worth having as a backup? Because you have the distraction. You have all the other things that come with a former number one pick who's not playing, right? Because that's always the media narrative. Oh, well, is this guy going to get a shot? Oh, do we have a quarterback controversy? Not a lot of teams are going to want that kind of thing.
Well, you bring up ghosts in Chad's past, if I can speak in the third person, by bringing up the name Jimmy Clausen. I remember being on the radio advocating at the time that Jimmy Clausen was going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. Because I was a Notre Dame fan, watched a lot of Notre Dame, like Jimmy Clausen. I also said the same thing about another Notre Dame quarterback. His name was Rick Meyer. And I was 0 for 2 on both of those.
Lessons learned. And I think that we all get it now. Just because
don't be a homer
at Alabama or at Notre Dame or at Ohio State doesn't mean anything unless your name is Joe Cool Burrow. So the Cincinnati Bengals, Chad, here on my plays that we've got up here, I've got the Jets, the Bengals, the Chiefs. Jets plus 10, Bengals minus 7.5, Chiefs plus 10. I'll tell you how I'm going to use these. But the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Browns game is one that I think that needs to be examined. This is a play that I would make without teasing at all. Cincinnati just beat Kansas City last week, right? So Cincinnati has beaten Kansas City 3 times in a calendar year. Deshaun, don't touch me while I'm getting massaged. Watson, thanks to the defense and special teams of Cleveland, was able to muscle out a victory against his former team in the Houston Texans, who are whopping 110-1 on the season. Congratulations. This is going to be a bloodbath. Joe Burrow is going to eviscerate Deshaun Watson, even though they don't play against each other. The Bengals defense is going to clobber this fucking guy. And I watched the Deshaun Watson, all of his throws. Dude, he looks so bad. He looks so bad. He has not played football in 2 years. And he was never the most beautiful thrower of the ball. He was an athlete. He had a lot of great upside to him. Deshaun Watson did. But I think Cincinnati is going to just slobber knock these guys. So, Chad, the way that I'm going to play this little card here, I'm going to take the Jets plus 10, the Bengals minus 7.5, and the Chiefs minus 10. And I'm going to go with the 3-team 6-point NFL tees, meaning I'm going to put the Jets to plus 16. I'm going to take the Bengals down to minus 1.5, and I'm going to take the Chiefs down to minus 4. This way, Joey, I have zero fear that Kansas City will cover that spread. If they don't beat the Denver Broncos by 4 points, Eric Bieniemy might be actually in Colorado again with Deion Sanders. Like, they might actually find a sacrificial lamb and just leave Eric Bieniemy behind if they don't beat the Denver Broncos by more than 4 points. That's just my thoughts.
I have another game I like. Titans giving up 3.5 over the Jags in Tennessee. The Titans are 8-4 against the spread.
Yes.
Anytime you can bet against the Jaguars, I say go for it. I also like the Seahawks at home, giving up 4 over the Panthers. Both teams are 6-6 against the spread, but the Hawks are 3-2 at home, and the Panthers are 2-3 on the road against the spread. The Panthers are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Seattle. So those are some of the games that I like as well.
Yeah, I like the Seattle game a lot. I think Tennessee is poised for a huge game. When you get beat by, 25 points by Philadelphia last week, you watch A.J. Brown eat you for lunch. And by the way, the Titans fired their general manager, John Robinson, this week. They fired him.
Yeah.
They're leading their division. They fired this man.
The other bet I like, Russians in any trade with America. That would be the other one that I think is probably an automatic winner.
Damn. Stay tuned. We're back here on the Sports Carnival.
The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest Mortgage Team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest Mortgage Team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
The Social Distancing Sport Association, or SDSA, presents guidelines to safer athletics. For example, when participating in basketball, remember the Harden rule. That's right, James Harden is a man ahead of his time. Number 1, when playing defense, that is if you choose to, keep 3 to 6 feet between you and your opponent. Never double team and always appear disengaged or aloof. On offense, be sure to isolate yourself from your teammates. Dribble the shot clock down, rarely pass, and finally take a 30 to 35-foot shot. This has been brought to you by Arm's Length Under Armour. Go ahead and play. Just stay at least an arm's length away.
And back to the action live from the Trauma Center Studios. This is the Sports Carnival. Here, I got a Yogi Berra quote for you. It's one I haven't seen in a while. I think you'll like it. The future ain't what it used to be. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Oh, man, I love that. This is such a classic thing. Yogi Berra's quote book, which is something that, if you were a baseball fan growing up, and my stepfather was originally from New York, his family was, he used to have this Yogi Berra quote book. It was hilarious. I mean, it was like just hilarious. Now, from a different day and age, the Ty Cobb quote book is something that you can't actually use nowadays. That was from a different part of America's past.
The other one I like is he said something like, I ain't in a slump. I'm just not hitting good.
You gotta love that guy.
Isn't that great? It's just like a different way of looking at life. That's all.
Absolutely. Hey, speaking of the New York Yankees, we talked about it early this morning. The hot stove is getting heated up. The Brewers have been just sitting really idle, and I'm really sorry to report that there's nothing to report for Milwaukee baseball right now that would get your heart excited. But as we've seen in baseball so many times, the overpaying for past production, it just continues on. So Aaron Judge, looks like a superhero in a comic book, right? He really does. Got a 9-year, $360 million contract. You think about Aaron Judge because he's only been playing in the majors for like 4 or 5 years, and you're like, man, this guy's got to be really young. He's 30-1. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's going to be getting
$40 million a year.
Yeah. He's going to be getting this money when he's 40. There are so many great examples of this not working out. As a matter of fact, all of them. Albert Pujols had a great career with St. Louis. I mean, one of the generation's best baseball players by far. And yes, he ended his career in St. Louis on such a magical high note. It was fun to watch that with Pujols. But that entire career that he spent in Los Angeles was a waste of money. They never made a postseason. He was never a shadow of what he was in St. Louis, a complete waste. Alex Rodriguez got the bag real late, too, and started to kind of wither, fall apart. Oh, wait, he took a lot of steroids. That helped for a bit. But, misses seasons because of that. This doesn't work out when you pay the older guys all this money. Alex Borgatis or whoever it is that left from, Boston goes to San Diego for 11 years and some god awful 200 and some million bucks. I mean, look, they're going to get paid what they're going to get paid. But baseball, to me, has this thing all fucking backwards. Pay these guys who are young, okay, in their early careers, and do like what the NBA figured out and the NFL is figuring out now. You shorten the contracts as these guys get older. You don't extend them.
Well,
like, what are you doing here? I mean, I get the Yankees want to sign this guy. He had a historic season. But, man, that's a lot of coin. He will absolutely never live up to the production that he put forth this year. Never.
Maybe this isn't quite the right analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. And when you look at all of the sports, it feels like you're paying a newspaper reporter all of this big money, if that makes sense. In other words, I mean, if you look at all of the sports, do you think baseball is in the forefront of the future? Do you really think somebody's going to is the future really people that are the age of 18 now, let's say when they turn 28, you think they're going to spend 3 hours in a ballpark eating popcorn?
3 hours. What fucking fast-paced baseball game you watch?
Well, because they've got a clock. They're going to have a clock now, so I'm trying to be nice.
Okay.
But my point being is it's not really built for the future currently, and you're spending all of this money on old players, and it just seems like they're so out of touch in a lot of ways. I don't understand it. I'm not, on top of the fact of just the current world situation. I mean, when you look at everything and how people are struggling, you're paying somebody $40 million a year to play a kid's game. If you look at it from a culture where you step back, forget about sports, you step back and look at the forest through the trees, it just shows you why our whole entire human race our whole society is just crumbling because we're spending this kind of money on grown men playing children's games. It's really pathetic and sad in a lot of ways.
Well, goddamn. All right. Well, let me just tell you this. If they want to pay this former newspaper guy like outrageous money to do basically nothing.
I'm not judging Judge. Good for him. I'm just saying.
Don't judge the judge. Here's the thing. That happens all over the world. The Saudis are going to pay Cristiano Ronaldo like $300 million a year to go play, soccer over there. Here's the thing with baseball, because I hear what you're saying, and on a principled level, sure, you're right. And teachers should probably make $40 million a year, but that's not going to happen. So,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's out of touch when you consider the way the world is. That's all.
For sure. Here's where I go with baseball, though, and this is what you mentioned about the age of the fan. Okay, the average age of a Major League Baseball fan right now is 55 years old.
That's
you go. The average age of a Major League Baseball fan.
Right.
Baseball is one of those sports on television that has the hardest time translating because you can't see the entire field in play when you're actually watching a game. You get different angles. The future of baseball, which I don't think is dead in any way, shape, or form, though, is going to be markedly different. I think baseball would just be better off paying guys when they're young and they're actually making the contributions as opposed to late. Now, some guys do get paid early. Why? Because they're not American-born players. Right? Fernando Tatis was 22 years old. He gets $300 million from the Padres. That's fine. He's even served that, most of his suspension for PEDs. That's going to pay off. That's going to be worth it because by the time that contract is over, he'll still be 32 fucking years old and probably have some more baseball left in him. I just don't get the idea why Major League Baseball has these wonky rules that doesn't allow them to pay American players first, but they can pay the foreign guys first. It's a bad and antiquated system. I look at the NBA. The NFL is perfect how they do their salary cap. I mean, it's almost the perfect way to do it. But I look at the way the NBA revised, Chad, several years ago, their salary structure and the length of those contracts because the collective ownership group is like, we're tired of getting hung with Glenn Big Dog Robinson when he's 38 and he can't score anymore. You know what I mean? We paid this guy
Forgot about that.
9 years and $800 million and he can't fucking play anymore.
Right.
So at some point you have to look at that. But Major League Baseball, again, with the no salary cap league, that probably isn't going to happen at any time in the future.
Verlander, picked up an $83 million 2-year deal.
Yeah.
So there's another, and he's 40. How old is he?
I don't know.
Granted, I think he's in his 40s or close to his 40s. Granted, he just won the Cy Young and in a World Series, and, all those kinds of things. And I'm not saying that he doesn't. And again, nothing against these guys. Hey, the market is the market. You're in it as a business, right? When you're an athlete,
yes,
you hire a manager and an agent and all those kinds of things, and you got to get what you get. It just seems extremely out of whack. And then a guy at work brought up something I thought was interesting. He's like, if anybody should be getting this kind of contract, it's Ohtani, because he can do it. He's a 2-for-1.
Yes.
When you think about it from that point of view, he dominates on both sides, and he's a 2-for-1. He's a dual threat.
He's possibly the best baseball player I've ever seen. Shohei Ohtani is possibly the best baseball player I've ever seen, because the way he hits, the way he pitches, his entire presence, Chad, he's
a dominator.
He's a dominator. I like that Neil's checking in with us here again. Neil, the Duda says, yeah, paying guys their actual value during their prime instead of afterwards, paying for previous accomplishments, is only a foreign concept to Major League Baseball. Yeah, and it seems like that will always kind of be the thing until there becomes a salary cap in baseball, which I don't know that. And I don't know that I'll say never. I used to say never. They'll never do that. I don't know if I'll go never at this point, because
they might have to, because it's getting too out of whack.
Indeed. And that's where I'm going to be curious to see how in the next 10 to 15 years, Major League Baseball is able to keep up with the NFL, who is expanding quickly as a property into Europe. Okay. The NBA is more popular overseas than it is here. The NBA is more popular in the rest of the world than it is here. So when people are like, I don't watch the NBA. Yeah, well, 6 billion other fucking people do. So they don't care if you don't, right? Like, that's not really in their marketing thing. But the Major League Baseball product does not translate in a large sense the way that the NFL, the NBA, or international soccer does. It just doesn't. You need too many things for baseball to happen. You need a huge field. You need 9 guys a team. There's a lot of equipment that goes involved with this stuff. Not that football isn't, but the comparative worldwide pull, it's just not there. And so I'm going to be curious to see how they continue a non-salary capped league.
I think
into the future.
I think they are heading in the right direction, putting the clock on the pitcher. I think the other thing that I know they'll never do because of purists that would probably benefit them more than anything is it's 162 games.
I know.
Dear Christ, that is forever. Could they whittle that down a little bit? It used to be 152 or 154. I don't even think that's enough. It needs to be like 100, 120.
Okay, and I hear you, because I've said the same thing. 100 games is the season perfectly done. 100 Major League games would be the season perfectly done. But we're asking somebody whose wealth now, I mean, these owners of sports teams, this is no longer the guy that owns the furniture store also owns the team. These dudes are looking at their parking and their concessions and all of this shit, right? They don't care how many people are even there. They want that place open for sponsorship, parkings, concession. There's so much business here that we lose touch with.
Well, I speak selfishly, like most people do, and I'm just speaking from a selfish point of view that I could make. I'm trying to make it more interesting for me, and I think that a lot of people would probably agree. But I also understand that baseball has been dominated by purists for a long time, and purists won't budge when it comes to a lot of this stuff. It was hard enough getting the DH situation. I mean, that was an argument for a long time. Now nobody seems to give a shit. And
I was against it. See? And I was one of those guys that said the DH shouldn't even be a thing. I'm like, that's not even real baseball. You're not a baseball player. You just hit the baseball. It's like the pitcher. Fucking sack up and go hit the baseball. You're a baseball player. What's wrong with you? Hey, we've only got about 1 minute and 20 left. I want to shout out to our friends that have checked in this morning, guys and gals. Thank you so much. We're always glad to hear from you. And to everybody that supports the show tonight, if you're a supporter of the show, Kyle Morningwood is throwing out like an umbrella invitation to go to the recovery room. I'm not sure if I can be there tonight, so don't count on me 100%. However, at the recovery room, Chad, we're getting our audience members geared up for the Christmas Carnival giveaway, which is thanks to our friends at Alaskan Amber as well as Blue Moon and New Glarus as well. Go to the recovery room tonight, hang with Morningwood, P1 Breacher, P1 Foreman, and have one of those beers. Get a New Glarus, a Blue Moon, or an Alaskan Amber, and get yourself signed up for the 43-inch smart TV, the Jack Daniels cooler, the Jameson or the Jägermeister onesie, I should say, the Tito's football, the Tito's display bottle, the White Claw cooler, the Jameson Bull Ring game, the Alaskan Amber 162-inch snowboard. Again, it's at the recovery room on 7th and Mississippi Street. We, of course, broadcast from the Trauma Center studios, which are powered by the recovery room. And I'm hearing a powerful voice. This is local celebrity Bailey Kale. Good job, Chad. Good job.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll talk to you guys in the morning.